If you're trying to figure out the best San Francisco neighborhoods for you, and you need to raise a family, this is the video for you. If you're new here, my name is Clay Jeffrey. I make videos about living in San Francisco. I'm also a real estate agent here, and my team and I help people just like you make the move to San Francisco every single day. Here's something I've noticed after living in the city for over 20 years across 8 different neighborhoods and helping a lot of families find their place here. A lot of people start their search with a neighborhood in their head. And there's one that I hear all the time. We're gonna get to that one. But most of them will end up somewhere they didn't expect, because the question's not really which neighborhood is best. It's which one is actually gonna fit how you live now and how you live as your life changes and maybe your family grows. Some parts of San Francisco just don't work for families. The logistics will fight you. Too many stairs, nowhere to park, no place for the kids to be outside. But there's another side of San Francisco. Neighborhoods that feel genuinely settled, where you know your neighbors, your kids can be running around outside, and it feels more like a small town than a big city. In this video, I'm gonna break down by lifestyle so you can figure out which one actually fits you. Let's get into it. If you ask most buyers where they want to raise a family in San Francisco, one neighborhood comes up over and over again. As I mentioned, Noe Valley. It has earned its reputation, and here's why. The vibe is established, community driven, and it's really family oriented. Strollers are going to be on 24th Street. We've got longtime homeowners. There's young families who moved in and immediately felt like they belong. It just feels settled. Like people actually want to be there long term. And a big part of what makes Noe great is 24th Street. It gives you cafes, restaurants, a farmer's market, grocery options. You can handle most of your week without getting in a car. The weather here is genuinely better than most of the city. It sits in a protected valley, more sun, less fog, and a lot of the homes up on the hills have views that really catch you off guard. The housing here is predominantly Victorian and Edwardian single-family homes. A lot of them have been beautifully updated, some of them really maintained, and some of them with a really modern remodel. Condos are also mixed throughout the neighborhood, which can be an option for some people. The trade-off is price. This is one of the most competitive neighborhoods in the city, and that is not changing. Houses here are averaging $2.75 million. That is the market. It's easy to understand why a lot of people idolize and want to start looking in Noe Valley. But what else is there? Hey, if you're relocating to San Francisco with a family and trying to figure out what your budget actually gets you in a neighborhood like this, that's a conversation I have with buyers pretty regularly. My info is in the description. If you like what Noe Valley offers but want better value or something that feels a little less polished, this is where people start. Just to the south of Noe Valley, up the hill, is Glen Park. It is the closest thing to a true small town inside San Francisco city limits. People know their neighbors, there's a real sense of long-term roots. Right around the BART station, you've got coffee, a few restaurants, a bookstore, a hardware store. It's not fancy, but it works. And having BART right there is a real asset for commuters. Then there's Glen Canyon Park, which honestly surprises people. It's got trails, a creek, real open space right in the middle of the city. For families with kids and dogs, it's a significant quality of life factor. Housing is a mix of single-family homes and a few condos. More entry points here than in Noe Valley. About $750K less than Noe Valley for a similar lifestyle. That's the Glen Park pitch right there. Okay, now just west of Glen Park is Bernal Heights. It's got a similar feel, but I'd say it has more personality. It's a little more relaxed, eclectic, and a little unconventional. I've got a whole other video about that, and we'll put it in the description. Cortlandt Avenue is that main commercial strip, and it runs right through the middle of Bernal Heights. It's low-key, local, walkable. Weather in Bernal is a huge plus. It gets more sun than the surrounding areas, and the views from the hill are some of the best in the city. Housing is mostly single-family homes, often smaller and more varied than Noe Valley. Block by block matters here more than most anywhere else. The North Slope, the South Slope, the Hilltop, they all have different feelings, and it's meaningful. Under 1.7 million median, it's the best value of these village neighborhoods. I put together a neighborhood guide that you can download. There's a link in the description. Hopefully that can help you. West Portal is a neighborhood a lot of buyers overlook and then feel like they discovered something once they spend time there. West Portal Avenue is one of the best true main streets in the city. They've got restaurants, coffee, hardware store, etc. And those things that have been there forever. They've also got some new places that have opened up that are great. I go to George's Donuts all the time. It's one of my favorites. The Muni Metro lines connects downtown, the Castro, and the Sunset. They all converge here, so it's really a useful commute hub. Okay, so for weather, we're talking about the mouth of the Twin Peaks corridor, so it funnels fog through regularly. The multi-climate is closer to like maybe inner Sunset than anything sunny like Noe Valley. It's not a deal breaker for everyone, but it's worth knowing. If you want the walkability of Noe Valley, but you're not chasing the same price tag, and you're okay trading some sun for it, West Portal is worth a serious look. We're talking about the same price as Noe Valley, but you're getting about 500 more square feet on average. If the village feel isn't your priority, and what you really want is space, privacy, and quiet, this is where you're gonna end up. St. Francis Wood is the most architecturally grand residential neighborhood in San Francisco. It was developed around 1912 and designed by John Galen Howard. Wide landscape boulevards, formal entry gates, fountains, Mediterranean and Spanish colonial revival homes on big, generous lots, especially the front yards. It was actually designed, planned from the start. And you can feel it when you walk through. Larger lots, larger homes, real square footage and yards. The trade-off is walkability. There's no commercial strip. For daily errands, you drive into West Portal. So some parts of it you can walk. If that trade-off works for you, this neighborhood really delivers. 3.5 million is the median, but homes average over 3,000 square feet. You're paying for space and you're getting it. Okay, Forest Hill is smaller scale, more tucked into the hillside, and genuinely surprising if you've never spent any time there. Homes are primarily craftsman bungalows and Tudor revivals from the 1910s and 20s. They're more varied and intimate than the St. Francis Wood homes. It has one of the oldest HOAs in the city that keeps it consistently well kept. What makes it special for families is there's a whole network of hidden stairway walks through the neighborhood. Quiet, tree-lined paths that connect the blocks. It gives the whole area an almost secret quality. This is the neighborhood I mentioned earlier that surprises people. It's worth walking before you form an opinion. Forest Hill Station is right there, one of the few Muni Metro stops that's embedded in a residential neighborhood on the west side. Forest Hill comes in around 2.25 million, and Forest Hill Extension is closer to 1.85, both significantly more home than you're gonna get at Noe Valley and for a much lower price. Okay, now we're gonna get into where a lot of families actually land. The Sunset's where you're gonna go if space and value are your priority. And you're honest with yourself about the weather. The earliest homes date to the 1920s and 30s. They're storybook style houses with living areas above ground floor garages. A combination that was unusual at the time and produced a streetscape that's distinctly San Franciscan. The rest of the Sunset was filled in with sort of a modern version of that in the 50s and 60s. And the result is block after block of very similar, nearly attached or attached single family homes with nice square footage, a garage, and often a small front yard and a large backyard. Each east-west corridor, Irving, Noriega, Judah, has its own commercial cluster. The outer Sunset has started to develop a real food and coffee scene in the recent years. Look, the weather is a real conversation here, fog and wind, and especially in the summer. Be honest with yourself before you fall in love with a house. What you get in return is more home for your money than almost anywhere in the city. At 1.55 million, it's the most affordable market in this video. Okay, with the inner Sunset, you've got Irving Street, which gives you a real commercial corridor, and you've got Golden Gate Park right there. It's your backyard with playgrounds, a conservatory, etc. For kids, that access is pretty hard to beat. The end Judah makes downtown reachable without a car. Weather moderates here a little bit compared to the rest of the Sunset, but summer mornings are still really cool and great. We're spending time there at different times of the day before you're gonna commit. Homes here are right around 2 million and you've got Golden Gate as your backyard. The Richmond is the most expensive of the three, and it shows. The housing stock is more varied. Marina-style stucco homes with Mediterranean detailing, converted Edwardian flats, craftsman bungalows, more character and more price variation than further west. Clement Street is a great commercial corridor in the city, dense, walkable, genuinely diverse, and the location for getting outside is really hard to beat. You've got Presidio to the north, Golden Gate Park to the south, and you've got Land's End at the western edge. So an honest note on the commute. The Richmond's really well positioned if you want to go out to Marin for the weekend. The Golden Gate Bridge is right there, but it's not a strong location for tech commuting when you're going south to the peninsula or to Soma. The Richmond's going to range from 1.9 to about 2.65 million, depending on how far west you're going to go. If you're somewhere in this tier weighing space versus walkability or trying to figure out how the commute actually works, that's something I work through with buyers all the time. Happy to talk it through. Info's below. Okay, so that's where families usually land, but if budget isn't the main thing you're working around, the conversation looks a little different. This is the top of the market for San Francisco families, and these neighborhoods are best understood together. Pacific Heights is the larger and more prominent Grand Victorians, Edwardians, and early 20th century architecture on generous lots, with bay views from the upper blocks that are among the best in the city. Fillmore Street is your main commercial corridor, and it is, I think, one of the best. Alta Plaza Park and Lafayette Park put open space right in the neighborhood. There's several private schools that are located around both of these neighborhoods, and that shapes the community fabric. Presidio Heights sits just to the west with a quieter, more purely residential character. Sacramento Street will give you a polished, walkable strip, and the neighborhood borders the Presidio directly. Hundreds of acres of forest and trails at your doorstep. The architecture here is among the most significant in the city. And then of course there's Seacliff, which is stunning homes, direct access to Baker Beach and Land's End, and one of the most private residential settings in San Francisco. I've got a video where I cover all of these neighborhoods in more depth when I talk about the ultra rich in San Francisco. That link will be in the description. Inventory across all three of these neighborhoods is limited. These homes don't turn over often. Pacific Heights median is just under $7 million. Presidio Heights is over $8 million, and the highest sale last year hit $42 million off market. Okay, the mistake most buyers make is leading with a neighborhood name. Start with how you want to live, and the right neighborhood usually becomes pretty obvious. Choosing the right neighborhood in San Francisco is a really important decision, and my team and I help do this every day for buyers, so we've put together a free neighborhood guide. It's our honest version of what to expect in each of these neighborhoods, the links in the description. And before you go, make sure you watch my video on the neighborhoods I'd actually steer families away from in San Francisco. It's the other side of this decision, and it's worth seeing before you make up your mind. This one here. Look, I know there's a lot of ground covered, but if you're somewhere in the process, even early, the best thing you can do is just start narrowing it down. Figure out the lifestyle first, the house comes after. I hope this helped you out, and if it did, please subscribe. I'll see you at the next video.